A powerful beak, green plumage, and fast. Striking exotic creatures are taking over European cities. Parakeets. Right in the home territory of native birds whose melodies have always been a delight. Suddenly, everything is different. Wild parakeets make a racket, and not everyone finds their voices seductive. Are these feathered immigrants causing confusion? And should they be got rid of again? In Cologne, these green birds are under observation. Biologist Michael Brown is interested in how they get along with indigenous animals and plants. Not much is known about these lovebirds, which belong to the 350-odd parrot species, and they're actually only known in the tropics. They first bred in Cologne in 1969, a novelty in Germany. Since the turn of the century, they have multiplied remarkably quickly and triggered hot debate.
A lot of people like the parakeets, but there are also many who are afraid of anything new, and we see this time and time again. So there's a general non-acceptance of these newcomers. People say they're dangerous, and if they're not dangerous yet, they could become dangerous in the future. So let's act early and eradicate them.
Where do these shrill, curve-billed birds come from? And how did they arrive here in Europe? The home of these ring-necked parakeets lies in Asia. They were much prized household additions in the noble residences and palaces of Indian rulers. In folklore, they played a very special role, held to be symbols of love. Today, parrots flap around cities and annoy farmers in the countryside as crop pests in their fruit orchards. From India, they came to Europe via the bird trade. Like many other types of parrot, these colourful, fun birds are popular pets, also for bird breeder Rolf Kamperschroer. The ancestors of today's wild parakeets probably escaped from the cages of breeders and buyers.
I can catch the green ones in Cologne, but I don't want to. No, I specifically only keep different coloured ones, so that I can't be accused of having released any or let them escape. I don't do that.
About 50 colour variations have been bred from wild birds by enthusiasts. The only green ones here are other types of parrot. Many people like parakeets because of their charm. These dexterous birds display almost human traits in their social behaviour. So their fans mostly overlook the ear-splitting noise these pets can make. They're very popular with breeders.
I believe the ring-necked parakeets are the most widespread. Ring-necked parakeets reproduce quickly, have a good egg fertilization rate, and they're not that difficult to breed. A bit of decent food, water, and off they go.
This little fellow is 3 weeks old. Rolf Kamperschwer has bred dozens of them. From experience, he can tell immediately that this one is healthy. Its parents were specially selected. Breeders are also concerned about the appearance of their protégés.
Of course, I'm careful about who is allowed to mate with whom, what colours will result. If a bird has a purple tail, purple plumage, then I know that something purple will result. Purple is the colour that's very in at the moment, and of course, I like to breed for something like that.
Wild parakeets are camouflage green. They're hard to spot in the urban park treetops. Only the male ring-necked parakeet has black and red feathers around the throat and neck. The females are plainer. And there's a second variety, the Alexandrine parrots, the ones with a red spot on their wings. They're extra large birds and sturdier than the ring-necked parakeet. They're also spreading, notes biologist Brown. Cologne has the largest population outside Asia. Unlike many of their other cousins, both types of parrot aren't shy of human contact. In fact, they actively seek it.
Well, I find them quite exciting, fascinating, because they're also beautiful. They're very attractive birds. They are very intelligent, learn from each other, learn from us too. They get on well with the city, with us humans. In my opinion, they fit in well in a multicultural city like Cologne. And they're also a bit of a highlight in the city.
But an attraction for some is a nuisance for others. Wherever the birds perch, they leave unmistakable traces. In Cologne, some people are incensed by the robust way the birds distribute the contents of their intestines. The cheeky birds leave a lasting impression. And not only that, they also help themselves to the city's greenery. The European Union considers this alien species as potentially invasive. The parakeets are on an early warning list. They're out there on probation, as it were. After their beak treatment, Cologne's trees are somewhat tonsured. There's nothing in the cathedral city that they hold sacred.
Now the soundscape is different. The calls are higher. Now come the parakeets.
Michael Brown fills in Cologne residents on the secrets of the birds.
There's another flock flying over from the other side.
Every evening, the birds swoop in from all directions on their own fixed routes for their communal night's sleep.
Right, here they come. The ring-necked parakeets fly quite low over the Rhine, and there's a reason for that, because the peregrine falcons in Cologne also like to grab the occasional parakeet. But because the parakeets fly close to the water, the peregrine falcons can't manage that. They don't dare do that.
Faster than the police would allow, they race through the city at 70 kilometers an hour.
You can almost catch them. Just hold out your hand.
They use the course of the river and roads as approach paths. From a radius of 20 kilometers, they fly into the city center of Cologne. Their destination? A dozen trees between the hotel, the river and the road. A perfect nighttime roost from a parakeet point of view. Traffic and concrete make it warm. It's also noisy, busy and well lit. No enemy would dare to come here. No peregrine falcon, no sparrowhawk, no goshawk.
That's also the reason why they have their roosting places in the inner cities, because they're relatively undisturbed there.
The arrivals end after half an hour every evening, and peace returns to Cologne, at least among the parrots. In the mornings, the parakeets go looking for their breakfast in the city park. On the ground, they're an easy target for birds of prey, so they're on guard. With constant interruptions, retreat is the best solution. Moreover, the black-clad sheriffs are out on the beat. Crows also have big beaks and appetites. One can accuse the parakeets of many things, but this mess is made by a native bird species. For the parakeets up above, the competition for tree cavities has started. Jackdaws as competitors. The parakeets get threatening. A big mouth and plenty to back it up. Alexandrine parrots are nothing if not assertive. Finally, the jackdaws give up. They're pretty hard on their own kind, too. The squabbling birds rarely get hurt during their beak fights. It's more about the ritual. Despite their quarrelsome natures, the parakeets definitely have friends in Cologne. Some will deliberately attract them to enjoy the spectacle. For the parakeets, a welcome fast food station with their own bird fly-through. They're perfectly equipped for their feeding raids. Their tools are their beaks and their feet, which are like gripper hands. Incidentally, most of them are left-footed. Autumn shows why it pays to live in the city. New food sources appear. The exotic green birds are accused of driving local bird species out, taking their food away from them. At first, parakeets and starlings share the supply. But when things get too close for comfort, there's strife. In the end, the bigger bird gives in and flies off. Aggressive parakeets? Hardly. Here, the starlings win out. And when it snows in Cologne, the densely built-up city stays several degrees warmer than the open countryside. The mild temperatures keep the tropical parakeets, that look a little like magpies in carnival costumes, in the metropolis. Their climbing skills give the parakeets a slight advantage where it comes to food selection. As the birds are quite messy eaters, those down below get a share of it too. Persistent frost leaves its mark on exotic birds. 2/3 of all the adults have missing toes, and this hinders them when climbing. Severe winters cause problems for parakeets and reduce their numbers. Meanwhile, they benefit from climate change and often mild temperatures, as well as extra meals. There's almost nothing to keep their proliferation in check. Birdwatchers from the Cologne Nature and Biodiversity Conservation Union plan their strategy for the annual parakeet count. In small groups, they post themselves in the approach routes to the birds' roosting places.
Oh, there they come. Those are parakeets. The parakeets take off from their assembly points every few minutes and head for their destination. Each observer keeps watch over a specific route. 12 big ones, I think. 12 big ones.
Flock after flock reaches their roosts. Not easy to keep an overview, especially when they fly en masse. Keeping a decent distance of at least a wing's length, the birds take up their perches in the branches. Only couples move closer together. These roosting trees are like a marketplace. Gossip is exchanged about new feeding spots, and there's a marriage market too.
Well, I'd say that was it. We can go now.
The birdwatchers counted over 3,000 ring-necked parakeets and around 1,000 Alexandrine parakeets, a new record. Although the street noise all day is louder and the parakeets squawking only lasts a short time, residents have repeatedly attacked the birds in previous roost trees. So because of their daily concert, the screechers have been driven away with hawks, sometimes with spotlights and firecrackers. This places the birds under temporary stress as it disrupts their need for protection. Cologne's parakeets have got used to the party city's boisterous nightlife. Their current roost is a good choice, away from residential buildings. And as long as it stays that way, the city won't do anything to scare the birds away. At dawn, the first callers waken all the other birds. Parakeets start their day slowly. They start to explore their surroundings, and the rising volume is a sign. They're all ready for their excursions to the city's parks. They mount the launch pads. And then the flocks take off for their favorite spots to carry out the business of the day. In the city park, before breakfast, a nice drink of water collected in a knothole. There's quite a queue. They don't always have to squabble. The birds compromise and wait for each other, albeit impatiently. Nearby, the parakeets are involved in some serious grooming. They've got plans. Rising temperatures and longer days are a signal for the birds. It's time to ensure offspring, and there are rituals for that. Waving and feeding. She decides whether he is permitted to get closer. And yes, there's a spark. Time for some tenderness. Neck fondling strengthens the bond. And finally, the balancing act of mating. It can get a little rough. Time for house hunting, but the housing market in the city park is highly competitive. The parrots aren't the only ones in the upper stories. The authorities are afraid the exotic birds will take away the few available tree hollows from native species. This place looks a little small. That gives the competition a chance. The assertive green birds defend their position. Here, anyhow. Because there are too few hollows, even the smallest hut is investigated. Three entrances maybe, but still no chance. So this will probably be the Tit family address. Number 2, City Park. Sycamore trees offer more comfort anyway. Right away, the parakeets view a woodpecker cavity. The female inspects the interior while her partner waits for her decision. Parrots can patch up and improve hollows, but not build their own. She's already started renovating, a good sign. The male checks out and blocks the entrance for other home seekers. Now it's clear that she wants to stay. Mutual plumage grooming is not only good for the relationship, but also for getting rid of parasites. There's a parakeet rush on the housing availability. And what effect does their aggressive behavior have on native cavity nesters? As biologist Michael Brown has discovered, many use other and smaller types of trees and are not disadvantaged by the parakeets. It isn't the parrots that cause the bottlenecks for the house hunting locals.
The number of tree cavities in cities is generally reducing because trees with cavities in them are felled for safety reasons. This means, of course, that there is always a shortage of nesting cavities in the city. And many years ago, the spotted woodpeckers set out to find new nesting cavities and discovered thermal insulation facades. And at some stage, the parakeets saw this and adopted the behavior. So at some point, they began to move into building facades.
Parakeets like using these empty woodpecker cavities because the larger Alexandrine parakeets chase them out of the city parks. they encounter other subtenants, sparrows for instance, and they are well known for being cheeky and fearless. The parrots clear out the cavities behind the building's facade and drive the much smaller sparrows out of their home. The birds gnaw through the insulation with their beaks. The polystyrene has absolutely no ill effects on them at all, and as long as they're breeding, a house owner is not permitted to evict the squatters or repair anything, according to the Nature Conservation Act. There's considerable damage left behind. But there are solutions to the problem. Nesting boxes. They're gladly accepted. Where the birds are taken into account early on, house owners have fewer problems later, as ornithologists have discovered. Nevertheless, it's likely that one day the birds' urge to reproduce will have to be curbed. To this end, the Cologne Zoo has become an open-air laboratory. The wild green birds have also taken up residence in the captive red one's paradise, and they engage in vocal duels. For biologist Anna Bresser, this is a chance to start an experiment. 10 nesting boxes are tested for suitability. Alexandrine parakeets are to breed in them, and there's also room for bats.
Just open the door quickly, so we can check the parakeets, whether they've got eggs or offspring. Okay, that's fine.
The boxes are used for research. If they're accepted by the birds, the researcher can measure breeding success and chick development. Up in the Alexandrine parakeets' airspace, the wooden boxes trick them into believing they're tree cavities. The boxes need to be put up in good time before the breeding season, weatherproof and without damaging the trees. This biologist researches how the population can be regulated by intervening in the breeding process. Parakeets are cautious, but also curious. The smart home is tempting, and the first inspections take place. Inspired by the large supply of nesting sites, partnerships happen quickly. The first pair seems not at all averse to turning the clapboard shed into their love nest. Word seems to have got round quickly. The green birds get down to business. Parakeet style, with beak blows. In the city park, the ring-necked parakeets like choosing old sycamores with smooth bark as their nesting cavity trees. Cats and martins have a hard time climbing up to their shelter there. The mother bird doesn't have to worry about her 4 eggs. This hollow is too deep for squirrels and magpies, but the father bird still stands watch outside. During the breeding season, parakeets forage close to their nesting spots. In case of danger, they have a shorter distance to safety. After 3 weeks, a chick has hatched. It's blind and has no feathers. The other eggs were evidently not fertilized. This often happens with these birds. The female is reluctant to leave the nesting site. She waits at the entrance for her partner. He also provides her with food. Seven days after hatching, the chick opens its eyes. Its feathers are growing. The little one will stay in the nest for 6 to 7 weeks. And now the father also takes over some of the babysitting. City parks are popular with parakeets as they have numerous old trees with knotholes and fruit. A goldfinch feeds in an elm tree, but he's not the only one. Critics believe that parakeets rob the local birds of their food. Michael Brown's observations, however, tell a different story.
Parakeets aren't specialist feeders and don't compete directly with any bird or other animal species. They're generalists and eat around 100 different types of plants, and most of those plants don't grow in their homeland. The trees bear an excessive amount of fruit, and no indigenous species occupies that food niche. So many of these tree fruits fall to the ground and go unused, and the parakeets are one of the beneficiaries of these fruits that hang in such huge quantities on trees, and there might be the odd apple among them too.
This wastefulness doesn't do the trees any harm either. Meanwhile, in the zoo, it's time to check the nesting boxes. How are the Alexandrine parakeet chicks doing? These 2 young birds have not yet fledged. To take a closer look at them, the researcher must briefly get them to a more accessible level. Together with the zoo veterinarian, she takes a little blood from the birds to determine their state of health and parentage. To date, biologists still know little about the new species in Germany. This is set to change in the coming years. Finally, the chicks are taken back to their living quarters and their parents. The cathedral metropolis of Cologne is a habitat for people and animals. Yet many residents hardly notice what's going on around them. But that is about to change too. Right here, in this park. Something's different. This nesting box is wired. The parakeet doesn't seem to care, but what it doesn't know is its private life is now public. The view of the interior of the nesting box is available to all Cologne residents. A projector casts the intimate images onto the wall of a subway station. This peep show is an art project and an attempt to bring Cologne's residents and their immigrants, or immies as they dub them, closer together. Tutoring in the subway tunnel with information and fun facts about these odd birds. Two stories up, at the ring-necked parakeet family home, the time has come. Mother and chicks leave the nursery with all the risks that go with it. Mastery takes practice. Thanks to their strong grip, the birds move around the leaf canopy like acrobats. But when they're airborne, they must rely on their good eyesight and steering skills. The fledglings especially have to gain experience in orienting themselves in the air. Sometimes things go wrong. Every year this vet gets to care for a few crashed pilots that people have found and brought in. This one was discovered at a roadside. It can't fly. An X-ray quickly reveals why. It has a broken bone in its left wing. The diagnosis isn't a death sentence, though. The break can grow together again. But the wing must be immobilized. It will take a few weeks. Most parakeets are injured in collisions with cars during their speedy approach to their roosting spots. This descendant of the original escape artists will have to spend some time behind bars. Once healed, they'll release him again. Biologist Michael Brown evaluates all the observations and data. He doesn't see any disadvantage of native bird species by the parakeets. On the contrary, it seems that rare stock doves even benefit from the parrot's expansion of tree cavities. Meanwhile, parakeets now live anywhere where it doesn't get too cold in winter, along the Rhine and Main rivers, but also in cities like Paris, London and Amsterdam. There they find different types of trees with fruits that are new to them, and that has consequences.
Their beaks are bigger and broader. They have bigger wings, longer skulls. They get heavier. They're already adapting to the new habitat in a way. They're measurably different from their ancestors, and at some point, they might become their own species. We'll have to see.
Parakeets have been breeding in Cologne for 50 years. For their fans, that's a good reason to celebrate.
Yeah, 50 years of parakeets in Cologne, of course. With Mardi Gras, we celebrate those anniversaries, and the parakeets as a green fool is part of it.
For Cologne ornithologists, parakeets belong to the native bird world now. They reproduce without human help and have done so for many generations. And they inspire the artist Madeleine von Förster.
I made this picture because I first came to Cologne to study these relics, and then I was very surprised to discover other strangers, these budgies. They've also made their home here, and I wanted to paint a picture about it. So I combined the relics and the parrots, so to speak. It means the meeting of old and new, and also of locals and foreigners. So all this also represents Cologne for me.
Unloved birthday child, ringneck parakeets in Cologne for 50 years.
Michael Brown defends the birds tirelessly and continues to collect facts.
And what happened back then? Well, back then the first ring-necked parakeets, the Indian ring-necked parakeets, escaped, and 50 years ago they were actually already spread all over the city.
He estimates the population of ring-necked parakeets in Europe at between 80 and 100,000 birds, and rising. Like it or not, one can hardly exterminate them. That's why the biologist is counting on peaceful coexistence with the new neighbours. The day has come for the crash pilot. Its wing has healed, and it will be set free where it was found when it was injured. Michael Brown uses this opportunity to obtain more data, because it's only at times like these that he can get up close to the birds.
First the leg band.
The bird is registered by means of a leg band so that in case of recapture or death, it can be properly identified.
Tail 182.
Everything that is measurable is recorded to learn more.
Wings 169. Beak length 21.3. 144 grams.
There's controversy around whether alien species should be set free after they've been cared for in captivity. But this little chap is lucky and is given another chance in the name of science.
He's more or less fit. He's got a bit of a dented beak, but he'll be fine.
If the bird stays healthy, it could get to be up to 15 years old.
As soon as his fellow parakeets come back in the evening, he'll join them. He's also a wild bird. That is, he knows where his home is, where he can find food and who his parents are. He'll find them again at the roost and his siblings, and hopefully there'll be a big family reunion.
Since the ring-necked parakeets became native to the Rhine, they have continually developed new strategies to adapt to their habitat. Joker or nuisance? Like beauty, that's in the eye of the beholder. The economic damage they do is comparatively limited, and biologists have no evidence of any ecological disadvantage. But still, they will have to keep an eye, and of course an ear, on the development of these alien birds in Cologne.